Hello, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Namaste, y'all, with Stephanie Boyce. Okay, so today I'm so excited because I have two special guests. Chris and Tish Johnson are here joining me on the couch for a conversation. Now, this just so happened to be my sister and my brother, but at the end of the day, I like to have guests that I feel like can keep it real. You know what I'm saying? So we acknowledge in Namaste, y'all, that Namaste is the recognition that the higher divinity in me acknowledges and recognizes the higher divinity in you. And then we throw in the y'all because, you know what I'm saying, at the same time, we still try, it's still a journey. So it's like, namaste, y'all. We trying to elevate and be enlightened, but at the same time, ain't nobody got it figured out. None of us know the answers. We're all trying to figure it out. And so I think it's important as we journey. I love to share the experiences and the stories of different people and different life experiences. And for today, we have a married couple. Married for how many years? It's been now 12?
12.
How many years? 10? 12?
12.
Together for 15, married for 12.
Married for 12. Okay, and I'm just saying, I stood up there beside you. So that's all I'm saying is that, this is one of the marriages that I support it. I signed off on it, and Chris don't understand the importance of best friends signing off on spouses. He think, he just swooped in and then got a good one and went on into the sunshine. But you know what I'm saying?
I did.
She had to approve, though.
We had to. Okay. Well, I'm just saying. So for every episode, we are grounding down into a different text that has been transformational for me on my journey of discovering self-love for myself. So today's episode is grounded down in this book, Committed. Now, if you're not familiar with Committed, it's the author of Eat, Pray, Love. And so I'm so excited to share this book with you and to recommend it if you haven't read it already. Again, I told y'all in the first episode, it does not take away from my book and my platform to recommend somebody else's. So Elizabeth Gilbert is a pro, but this book, she really takes time to talk about. She found herself in a situation at the end of Eat, Pray, Love where she found this fantastic guy and they started dating, but they were both divorced and they both promised each other, I would never do marriage to you. So they were just going to partner together forever and then just live. But because of a situation, he was from outside of the country, they had found themselves in a green card situation where they had to get married for them to be able to stay together. So anyway, this book was her taking time to research the institution of marriage. And so I think a lot of times for me, I say one of the biggest things we didn't get taught in school, high school, college, nowhere. Nobody was teaching us about marriage. It was just like, you love somebody, y'all like each other very good, go get married and treat each other well. But in terms of considering the institution of marriage, where did marriage come from? What was it for in the first place? Who got married? People that got married when marriage first started died about in their 40s. So what was the purpose of this in the first place? Understanding what the purpose of it was and seeing how marriage has changed over the years, this trajectory historically transformed my mind about what the purpose of marriage is. And so I'm so glad today to have a couple that I love, respect, and admire to talk about what marriage is for them. And so we're going to start the conversation with a question about when you consider marriage being, so I feel like the gist of this book at the end was, I read all this stuff and I thought to myself, marriage is what you make it and with whom you make it. And so it's all about making it your own. And so for me, that's the biggest goal when I think about remarrying and doing the whole thing again. It's like, I grew up in Black church.
Right.
And in Black church, we were told a lot of things about what marriage is, about what God wanted it to be, about what the church wanted it to be, about its usefulness for the church. And there was like almost like a checklist, like to be a good girl, to be a good wife, like these are the things you need to have. And I did all the things on the checklist as far as I was concerned. Still found myself 36 years old, divorced, rebuilding my life and then deconstructing what I believed and why. And so I wanted to know, 12 years in a marriage that I can say I respect, because y'all know everybody out here doing marriage different.
Absolutely.
I wanted to know from y'all's perspective, what does it mean to you to do marriage on your own terms?
You want me to go first or you want to go first?
You can go.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you for having us on the show today. We're super excited to be here having this conversation with you. But Chris and I decided way before we got married that we didn't want our marriage to look like anybody else's. He had seen a very successful marriage. His parents were married almost 50 years.
Shout out to the OG Johnson.
Yes, his parents were married for almost 50 years before his dad's passing last year. And so he grew up in a 2-parent household. He knew what it looked like for 2 people to put in the work. I, on the other hand, had never really seen a successful marriage other than my grandparents, and old school. It looks a little bit different. You know what I mean?
It was different.
It's a little different if we just being honest. It doesn't mean that they're not happy, but it just looks different. So we decided we don't want our marriage to look like anything else. So what does that look like for us? We actually sat down and had a conversation about all the things. Will we have a curfew? Do I have to, if I go out with the girls, do I have to be in by a certain time? Do you have to be in by a certain time? How do we want to raise our kids? Will we drink in public? Will we have open, candid conversations about our relationship? What do we want it to look like? Who will we take advice from? Can anyone ever live with us? All these things.
Everybody can't be giving advice.
Listen, who will you take advice from? But just because you are married and have been married, that doesn't necessarily mean that we would want to take advice from you, because we may not want our marriage to look like yours. You know what I mean? So we decided umpteen years ago that we were going to do what felt right for us and what worked for us, regardless of what anyone else was saying we should do. Mm-hmm. So
I think, like you said, marriage is based off the history of what you know or what you believe it is, and that might change over time. Like she said, my parents were married 49 years. They're old school, so they weren't super transparent about their marriage, but as a kid, both my parents were in the house, so that's what I was used to. That's what I thought it was supposed to be. I think me and Tish and I talked to her about this the other day, we're kind of just a perfect storm,
I can see
my background makes me, I'm just like my dad, so my background is going to make me like him because that's what I grew up around. So I was like, when I get married, I want to stay married to whoever I get married with. Whatever I got to do to be married to that person, that's what I got to do to stay with them, because that's what the kind of house I grew up in. I didn't know anything about divorce or split homes or child. I didn't know none. I didn't hear none of that till I became an adult. And
what
she was
this?
almost completely the opposite, but it created her mind frame of more a rebellious attitude towards it, where I want my marriage to work because I'm not around any that work. I want to make sure I go out of my way to make sure that my marriage is successful by any means necessary. And I think when we got together, a lot of things happened that kind of culminated us learning more about marriage. And when we went to the church, we learned a little bit more. I learned how to be a husband, or what I thought it meant to be a husband, because I did grow up in the church, not super into it, but they took me, and whatever stuck.
Whatever
you fall asleep on your mom's shoulder, and whatever catch. Yeah. So we learned what we did, and like she said, we do what works for us, and I think that's what anybody has to do. We have our guidelines that we follow, that hey, we want to do things in God's eyes and follow this way, because that's what we believe in. Mm-hmm. But we make it for us. Like she said, when we met, we set these ground rules. This can't happen. We won't take advice from this type of person. We won't do this, and we could do that. You could do whatever works for us. Yeah. And that's going to be different from somebody else's household. It's not going to all be cookie cutter. Yeah. And I think when people try to make it cookie cutter based off what they hear or perceive or what the masses tell you that marriage is supposed to be, then you're going to end up going down the wrong way or something.
Well, and I want to also, because you said y'all sat down and had this conversation a whole lot of years ago. Mm-hmm. And I also feel like on the front end, see, this is the reason why people on podcasts, everybody with a microphone, you should not take their advice. A lot of things are theoretical before you experience them, right? Absolutely. It's the same way people talk about parenting. They'll be like, oh, when I'm a parent, I'll, like me. When I'm a parent, my child will eat organic food. All organic. And will do. And she did. And I had that baby bullet baby, and I made that food when she was little. But guess what? She'll catch some Cheetos. she'll catch them Cheetos now.
Few French fries.
I remember when
Bet
you
she
said
ate French fries
you wasn't
yesterday.
ever gonna take her to McDonald's. The chicken nuggets was
I
quick.
don't know if
ain't
I
it?
said I would never, because I
You
ate
did.
chicken nuggets
You
while she
did.
was in my
You
stomach.
did.
Them 10 counts had a, okay.
Hold on you.
I had a chokehold on me. but so I say that to say I think a lot of things are theoretical, right? So that's why it's hard for me to listen to some people when it's like, baby, the old folks say just
keep on living.
You ain't been married, you ain't had to endure none of this and all of this. So when you sat down all those years ago, in theory, you had some ideas about, okay, this is what we would do, this is what we wouldn't do, take advice, all of these things. But I feel like as you get into marriage and you walk in the walk, I feel like things have evolved. And so in what ways, this is kind of a caveat to the first question. In what ways have the things that you sat down and talked about and all of those in terms of making marriage your own, how has that evolved for y'all over the years? Because I feel like you still got to pivot and change and be fluid and be willing to grow. And I feel like I've seen you all grow together over the years. And so what does that look like?
I think every individual has to be adaptable. From a perspective of a man, and a lot of the men I hang around, without a catalyst, we'll be comfortable and we'll be the same. In my opinion, majority of us, we won't change unless we have to. You know, that's how I'm built. A lot of guys I hang around with, that's how they're built. Something has to make us do something different. Otherwise, it's
like without women, y'all gonna be sorry. That's what I
said. A catalyst. It doesn't have to be.
Without
It doesn't have to be women,
no,
but I'm a simple person. A lot of guys I hang around, we're simple. We don't require a lot. A lot of times, something has to push us to do more. You know, I'd be comfortable middle class forever where I was working when we started. My $60,000 was good to me.
Very good.
I could have did a lot with it.
Chris said my bills was paid.
Yep,
I had my groceries.
Yep.
Good.
And then here I come.
Yep.
So what's the plan? What we gonna do? What we doing? How we
That's
gonna?
basically what happened. Yeah.
This ain't enough.
So when you add in all of that, then you add in inflation and everything else, and kids and
private school,
you realize you need a little bit more. And I think the key is communicating that effectively with your spouse to be able to evolve. And it's not all financially. I think in my perception, women evolve faster. They change more than a man will. And if the man don't want to keep up, it's going to get real hard. It gets real difficult to understand who you're married to, because 12 years ago, this is a completely different person.
Well, can you help a man that might be watching now? Because I feel like sometimes, like what you're saying is you accepted the call to grow. Like I feel like as a man, that is probably, I've never been a man, I'm speaking in theory. Yes. That is probably a scary thing, especially if you're married to a certain type of woman where this growth and this abundance and this constant reach for more. And I understand that that's what Tish had. You know, I feel like that's part of why we've been able to be friends for so long, is this constant thing where you see like it could be more.
Right.
And then there is more, not in a way that's like comparative or like whatever, but it's just like, well, what about this? Well, have we tried that? Well, is there another door we can open and explore together? But I feel like that can also be very scary for some men to be able to, I don't want to say keep up with that or whatever. What advice, or I don't know if it's even advice you would give them, or what would you say about?
And again, it's not always the man. Sometimes it's a woman might be complacent. It just depends on the person. So it's not limited to men. I don't want people to think I grouped everybody. Just most of the men I hang around, these niggas, we the same. Yeah. Like, you know, if I could just play PlayStation and coach my kids, I'd be cool.
No, you serious.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But, you know, we need a bigger house. We need a bigger space. My wife don't like to do the same things she did before. We got to do different stuff. She want to see different places that I don't really care to see, but we got to go to them because that's where she want to go. And if I want a happy life, I need my wife happy too. So, you know, and advice for a man is you do have to be willing to grow and change, but that goes for the woman as well.
To adapt. Vice versa, right.
You have to know how to comfortably push a man to go in the direction you want them to go if they're not going that way. Vice versa for me, I have to push her in the direction I might want her to go. And it's a give and take, you know, and that's the benefit of marriage, is that we complement each other. So if she sees more in me than I do in myself, and I see more in her than she does in herself. She's glad I retired her. I'm waiting on her to retire me.
Back. It's coming.
I'm trying to be in a soft life too. Call me what you want. I'm trying to get in my soft life. I'm finna stay at home with my kids, and we finna play basketball and PlayStation.
I'm not mad at
and we
that.
gonna be chilling. Yeah. And she gonna be famous, and I'm trying to get invited to the Tiny Desk concert.
Listen,
when is we gonna get to that status where I could go to?
We
already missed SWV. I missed SWV.
Listen,
say SWV was
if you just get in your full potential, right. I will be able to attend these events.
Listen, wait,
I'm waiting.
I have a question.
I'm patiently waiting.
I don't mean to take over. I have a question though,
concert.
Because with you saying that usually your spouse can see more in you than they can see in themselves. For example, I know with real estate investing, that was my push for us. Like, hey, I really feel like we could do this. It could be great for us. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's going to be hard. But if we stick together and we stick to the goal, we make our plan, we could do it. When, after I got my master's degree, and I told you, Chris, I really feel like this is something you should do in your field of IT. You know, first of all, people make a ridiculous amount of money in IT. There's no reason you shouldn't go ahead and get your master's. And I know that's something you were never thinking about doing. Any house we ever bought, you were always very hesitant. And I'm like, no, let's do it. We should do it. I know we can do it. You know, so do you feel like any of that has to do with how you speak to your spouse, because you said you have to push them, but I also feel like it's very important how you
push them. Say, man, let me tell you something. Either you gonna come out here and get to this money, or you ain't.
Right. So
that's what you should say.
Like,
that's
do you feel like it's important to listen?
I was
so
just
what
kidding.
We doing?
That was a joke. I don't.
So how important is it the way you push them and how you speak to your spouse? Is it important that you learn how they receive information best, or do you just say it however it comes out?
That depends on the person. I mean, you do got to learn how somebody receives information, but after a while, sometimes you just got to, you know, I don't sugarcoat nothing. That's just how I am. Yes. But you knew that when you met me.
That's because you're a jerk, Chris.
I'm not finna sugarcoat anything or walk on eggshells or none of that stuff. Like, I'm gonna say it as blunt with as few words as possible. I don't want to beat around the bush or anything like that. Everybody's not built like that. So you do, again, that's a part of being adaptable to your own relationship and the person that you chose. And again, back to we kind of pigeonholed down a whole bunch of other stuff. But just as a man, my definition of what it meant to be a husband came from the church that we attended, and
the whole daddy that you had,
and the daddy.
Your whole daddy used to drive your mama. I remember your daddy,
good man,
was driving your mama.
So again,
it's now Chris be driving.
It's
Tish
a culmination of
crazy,
a culmination and combination of a bunch of different things. Some are innate to me from how I grew up, and some stuff I learned along the way. So my perception is, as a husband, I'm supposed to hold stuff down to my best ability. Like, and again, this isn't just for marriage. How I view marriage is from a Christian standpoint. Everybody's standpoint isn't like that. You could view it however you want, but we chose our underlying beliefs to be Christian rooted when it comes to marriage. So when you add that in with how I viewed my dad and my mother's relationship, then you get a nigga like me. And I'm gonna, what we learned was we love our wife like Christ loved the church. And that's was a staple point when I heard that I have to be willing to not only die for my wife, but what's harder than that is to suffer. So I'm not
to live for.
I chose that. So when I learned that before I got married, and someone told me that, and I said I wanted my marriage to be Christian based, so that's what I chose to do. So when I'm in a point where I'm suffering for my wife, I have to be okay with that. That's what I chose. And that's what loving your wife like Christ loved the church means. So
Suffer
stuff is, so I don't have no problem carrying the cross, carrying the burden. I'll work 2 jobs if she got real tough, like if it got real dicey, then I do what I can.
Okay, but this is the thing, Chris. Let me interject, and then Tish, you need a little airtime too. But let me say this: I feel like because there's somebody watching who's going to feel inspired that they want a Chris. They single. They want a Chris. Oh, that's a good man, Savannah. I saw this episode. It was a good man on there. Tish had. But let me say this: when it comes to selection, Chris likes to think he's a unicorn. I like to say,
I'm not a unicorn. I'm not a unicorn.
Okay.
I am a white buffalo. Completely different.
Completely different.
Unicorns are majestical, mythical creatures that don't exist.
White buffaloes exist.
White buffaloes are real. They're very, very rare.
Okay, very rare. But let me say this. There are some indicators. This is what we need to say. And this is not on our cards for today, but we going somewhere.
Okay.
There are some indicators when I look at a profile for you, Chris, right? There are some indicators of a person that is going to be more likely to be on a trajectory of growth, a man, if you will, right? So you're saying there was a man, your father, who you kind of saw as a blueprint of what it means for a man to be there. But there's also the trajectory of you went to college, you persisted through college, which we know is a hard, difficult task to do, that you persisted through college, that you went out into the workforce, that you had to, even in college, that you pledged, that you made it through. Like there are some indicators that you have some stick with itness, push through itness in you as a man.
Yes.
And I remember Tish telling me early on when y'all had a conversation about like, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, this is where I am now in my career. This is what I'm making. This is what I'm planning to do in the next 5 years. This is how much that makes. This is how I could get to 6 figures in this role. You already knew. And so I think it's not just about, people like to talk about get a man that has some money. And I've always been like, it's about earning potential, I think, more, especially in your 20s. Now I'm almost 40. It's not about potential no more. It got to be potential. It's too late now. It gotta be the potential. Gotta be
there.
Yeah. But I feel like for somebody that is younger, especially like a man with a plan. See, this is what I'm listening to you talk, Chris. But then I am extrapolating that a man with a plan, because you're looking at the future, you're projecting. You know, you want to have kids and like all of these things. And Tish was always from the beginning. I mean, more so than me. I mean, she romanticized the idea about being married, about being a mom. I'm over here like, I'm going to be a principal by 30. I'm checking out this money. Get this money. And you just always had this beautiful idea of, I'm going to be a wife and I'm going to be a mom. I can't wait to have kids. And I was like, I mean, I'm going to have some. It didn't feel like a goal to me.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was always so like whatever. So to hear you talk about how you had a conversation with Chris about what does the future look like makes perfect sense to me. And so I just wanted to extrapolate that just based on what I heard you say, Chris. And if you have anything to add to that before we pivot.
Yes. The one thing, but not even, because I know we say we're a little closer to our 40s now. So, you know, in a spouse, you may want to be with someone that is where you are. You know what I mean? But for us, being that we were in our 20s, early 20s when we met, it was more so, like you said, about the plan. What is the plan? What are the steps you plan to take to achieve these goals that you have? And when I sit back and observe you, are you actually taking these steps?
Because do you have a history that is leading up to these steps?
Listen, because a pair of lips will tell you anything, right?
Lies.
Will tell you anything. But are you taking actionable steps to reach these goals? And when I look back, Chris was, if he said he was going to do, first of all, not only that, but being a man of your word. Even if you say you're going to come through, or you say you're going to do something, or you say you're not going to do something. Right. I will not do X, Y, and Z, or this is something that do they actually do those things? Because that's an even smaller indicator of if they are willing to take the actionable steps to reach their goals. Are they a man of their word?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's just some of the things that you should be looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I want to pivot this conversation because a big part of this platform is about a millennial's journey to self-love, discovering self-love. Again, I always say, like, there was not a course. Nobody taught us, like, this is how to take care of yourself. It's been me studying and really becoming more intentional about, there's a self-love, self-care movement. People talking about bubble baths and going to the spas and I think that's cool too. But there's a deeper issue whereby we live lives where we are not authentic, which is the biggest form of self-hate, where we live lives that are comparative. We're looking at other people, comparing ourselves on IG and all these things all the time. And so a big part of this platform is about discovering self-love for yourself first, loving yourself well.
Absolutely.
And then as an extension, finding someone who can love you well or not, and just loving yourself well. And so I wanted to know, if you consider that you're going to be journeying with somebody for the rest of your life, however long that will be, how do you hold space for self-love while you are also trying to prioritize? Because even when I hear Chris talk about, if I had to suffer for my wife, I'll suffer. And I'm like, and you should. And hopefully it wouldn't all be a suffer. So how do you hold space to love yourself well while you're journeying with somebody?
I have no self-care days.
Yeah, he will have very little to say about that. And I hate that for him because I try to push him like, hey, you want to go meet up with the guys? Go have a cigar? Go have a drink?
You have your video game time.
Video game.
That's it though.
He is a video game. He used to be a golfer before the kids came along, but he said golf costs too much.
You know what?
Saturdays is sports now.
Yeah. So, video games, I give him his time to play his video games. For me, I do my own nails and toes, my own hair. My upkeep, I pretty much take care of myself just because we're frugal. That's just, it's not that I can't. Sometimes I feel like going to get a pedicure, I will. But for the most part, I just do everything myself. But I like to go get massages. I like to go to happy hour with my girlfriends. I like to go out to dinner, So I like to just have time to myself in the house to read. Like, hey, baby, I need you to take your boys, these two little noisy little jokers. I need y'all to go find something to do because I need some quiet time. And he will do that for me. And in the same way, if he is just overwhelmed or anything might be going on, I'll tell the boys, daddy. I'm like, leave daddy alone. Daddy's having some daddy time. You know what I mean? I have to protect that space because sometimes as parents, we don't know how to do that. Now, you've heard me tell the kids, this is mommy time. I need you to go out. I need you to exit.
Shut the door behind you.
This is mommy's personal time. He does not necessarily do that, so I find myself having to protect that space for him. Like, hey, daddy's watching a movie, give him a minute. Or daddy's playing his video. Movies. Or daddy's playing his video game. Go back to your room. Well, I want to play with him. You can play with him later. Right now, it's just his time. I have to protect that space for him because he won't do it for himself. And I don't know why. Why is that?
It's a man thing.
It is. I think it's just, like
suffering.
I said, it's a matter. That's one half of it. But again, like I said before, stuff is simple for not all men, but men as myself. It's simple. I don't really want to go outside all the time like that. Every once in a while, like it's too expensive for a man to go outside. You want to go inside and enjoy your mortgage? Yeah,
enjoying my mortgage.
If I was a woman and super cute and I went outside and everybody paid for everything, that'd be cool. But it don't.
They do.
My table costs. They make me pay inflated prices for a bottle to get my table when that bottle cost me $40 at the house.
Yeah.
And the niggas I would be with is on the PlayStation with me anyway.
Right.
So we really ain't gotta go out there like that. Every once in a while.
Y'all want to sit down.
Yeah, I ain't gotta.
So for self-care, you want to hold space for a sit down.
For a sit down.
I want to sit down.
Yeah.
Be left alone, do my thing.
Yeah.
I think that's good, but there's a level of self-awareness with self-love that says, like, I'm going to be aware about what works for me. And then I think there's a time where you have to discover that. Like, there's a time of discovery where you have to even figure out, for me, it has been, I'm a recovering type A, goal-oriented achiever.
Come on, recovery.
It was always a checklist. and sitting down felt like I'm wasting time. There's something I could be doing. There's something I need to be whatever. And I think one thing that y'all haven't mentioned that I'd love to hear you kind of speak to before we get to the last part of our time together is, I think the biggest part of self-love and holding space with somebody else is allowing for their authenticity to be valued in the space. to the point where it's like, I feel like I have seen over the years the unmasked versions of you both with each other, to where it's like everybody has to armor up when you go outside. You're going into the workforce. Chris works corporate. You're going into the workforce, like whatever it is you're doing outside. And I feel like we have this armor. We have to armor up. We have to go. We have to do the things and achieve the things. But I feel like the partnership should be the place where you could take the armor off, the mask can come off, and everything. It's just a certain level of authenticity that exists. And I feel like that requires a certain space that some people can be married forever. I know people married that are armored up in the marriage with the person. And so I wanted to know, how do you foster that or create a safe space for it? Because I think that's the first part of self-love that Tish can come to you and say, because I've heard in the past her say, when you don't take me out and make me feel special, it make me want a boyfriend. Mm-hmm. Do you want me to go get a boyfriend, or do you want to take me out and date me like you used to? And There is no way I would have said that when I was married, because like everybody can't handle that. Like, but it really is what's real. If somebody is making you feel neglected, you feel like, hello, like I'm still here. So what does that look like for y'all? How do y'all manage that?
I can tell, and I have said exactly what Stephanie said has been said in my marriage, or it has been, every time I step out of the house, there is someone trying to talk to me. And normally I am uninterested. However, I have been extremely interested recently because I do not feel like I'm getting the attention that I would like to receive. So I need you to do something about that before I end up taking somebody up on their offer. And I don't say that to be mean, but my thing is, whether I'm actually going to do it or not, I'm thinking it, right? So
it all starts with a thought.
It all starts with a thought. So if I think it, and if he's my person, I want to be able to be honest and transparent and let him know what I'm thinking. I don't want to hide it or sugarcoat it. We have also been in situations where I had a very, very close friend for years and years since childhood. And, there were some things that, crossed a little bit of a line in terms of just conversation and things like that. And I was honest with him. And I said, I don't want this to get to a place of no return. So I want to have a conversation with you about what has gone on, because I'm finding it hard to protect myself from this situation. And I don't ever want it to come down to me being without you. So you and I have to fight this together. And he was totally on board with that. Anything that I'm ever struggling with, anything that I'm having a hard time with, he's like, you come to me and I'm going to help you get through that. So he's always created a safe space in our marriage for me to be honest with him. And he can be just as honest with me.
Because life is going to be lifing. And I feel like if you journeying with somebody forever, there's not going to ever be a time where you won't have an interest in somebody, or somebody's not trying to, or there's not something you will have to work through. And I feel like the worst thing that can happen is when people don't talk about it. And the thought is there, but now the thought has turned into action because you haven't shared it when it was just a seed. The thought is a seed. And now the thought has started to become action, which is sprung into something.
Right.
But now the action, which might have just been something just light. Like I just went and had drinks with somebody, and I just went and blah, 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 turned into, I had too many tequila shots, and then we was in the car, and then, you know what I'm saying? Like it turns into from one thing to another. And so, but anyway, Chris, I'm gonna let you answer, but I was just thinking about that, Tish, when you said that.
And I'm sorry, before you go, but just having that relationship to where you can be honest with your spouse. It's a beautiful thing when they create that safe space to where you can tell me anything. There's nothing that would make me stop loving you.
Anything you can say here.
Yeah.
We'll fix it.
Right.
Together. That's beautiful, Chris. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just don't want to get lost in the fact that, like I said before, me and my wife are a perfect storm. Like, people have to be realistic about marriage and not over fantasize it, like you said earlier. But we are truly compatible. And a lot of the times the marriages that I see that are still kicking, that couple might be different from us in their own way, but the compatibility is similar. And, you know, it's not always black and white, but sometimes it gets pretty close. So she's super outgoing, and, you know, I'm more reserved and laid back. You know, she's empathetic. I really don't give a fuck what everybody thinks or how they feel about what we do.
Chris is a jerk.
And a lot of times as you grow, things that are her strengths rub off on me. Things that, you know, are for me start to rub off on her. She would get anxiety, wanting to be everywhere, help everybody, worry about what everybody think, and is getting less and less. She's getting less and less empathetic to that because she's around me. I'm like, why we caring what everybody else think?
But let me tell you how it started though, Chris. Because at the beginning she would reference Chris. She would be like, "Well, Chris said we can't do that, or we not gonna.
We not finna
Let me talk to my husband about it. Well, Chris said we not gonna be. You know, and it went from there to like after a while. Well, no, we're not gonna be able to do that. It's like,
oh, we gotta hurry up. We finna be like I'm not finna rush and inconvenience myself. We gonna be there when we get there. Sometimes. We ain't got to be there early. Everybody else going to be late. Why we got to hurry?
We got to be there on time.
We ain't got to do that.
Social event.
I was like, why is you stressing me out?
It's not work.
It's a perfect
If you supposed to be the prettiest one in the room, you get there when you get there, then the party start.
But I like how you say beautiful storm, because I think some people feel like if it's married, if this is the right person, it's going to flow and it's going to be.
It does. And
it's like there's no such. And if it is flow, I'm going to say this too. And if it is always a flow, and there is. We don't have fights. We don't. There is probably some things that are not being authentically exchanged between the two of you, such that the peace can be kept like that. Because the real experience of people is that you should expect that there's gonna be some turbulence, and that you're with somebody who you can navigate turbulence with. And that's what I feel like with y'all. It's not that it's perfect, because I see y'all on IG, but then I know y'all in real life. So like I see things that y'all post, and I'm like, it's funny, I like it or whatever. But I also know behind every silly post is like real shit going on.
I hate doing all of those posts.
Like he does not.
Which is why I don't talk or communicate in the majority of them, because I don't like doing it.
Altogether. But the reality is that's how I act with him at home, and sometimes I just turn the camera on. So
it be that way.
And that's the only way they're gonna work.
That's the only way it works.
But again,
last question. Go ahead after you finish.
I was gonna say again, it's a perfect storm, and I do as much work and effort as marriage requires. I think that anybody that is with the same person forever, those are just the random few people that might have just won the lottery. Like it's a very hard thing to do to not only grow and be already compatible with somebody and grow with them as they change over the course of time. Yeah. So to have somebody who is as blunt and abrasive as her be able to say things like, this nigga was fine at the club and he was on me, like, we need to do something, like, because I was feeling
they trying to get me. The streets. They
out there.
It's trying to reclaim me.
Calling me. That's how she come on. They calling me.
Listen.
They trying to call me.
And for me to be able to be the type of person to not get so offended by that, well, I could either nut up in my shell and let the streets take my wife, or I have to do something. I have to man up and do something.
That's an ego response, though, Chris. I think what you're describing is an ego response. I could either, as a man, let my ego be like, okay, then, well, if that's what you want, go do that. Right. Or you can have a love response of what I hear you saying in your own abrasive ass way is that you miss your husband and you want your husband to come take you out.
And that is a very hard form of communication for people to learn how to do. I think that we were lucky enough to be compatible to where we didn't have to really try hard at that. Some people have to learn how to communicate like that. In the beginning, we were kind of like that. Like, gotcha. You can say what you want. You're not finna really just hurt my feelings. And when you do, I'm not. If it's fight or flight, I'm a fight person. Like I'm not finna shy away from it. You said what you said. All right, we'll go out, but don't get it twisted. Like, niggas is out there, they'll try to fuck anything. Like,
they're gonna, because don't get beside yourself, because they're gonna try to touch on you.
So you fine.
They're gonna try to touch on you.
I'm like, you fine, but they don't have to deal with all this stress. That's why it's so fun.
They ain't finna make a home with you, girl.
That's why it's fun. They ain't paying for nothing.
Twisted. You come home letting me know, baby, they was on me. You better get it together.
That white buffalo, get out. They see get a spot of that white buffalo.
Listen, you know
what? You got to be correct when I come home and be ready for action.
They see posts, they see people looking good and dressed up and doing stuff.
That's your best when you get out there.
Do you ever feel like you don't like each other? Do you ever feel like
a whole bunch of days? I say it to her all. What I tell you?
He tell me.
People need to know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I think they feel like, oh, well, you married, and it's like, no, like there's gonna be sometimes you don't like each other.
Do you love me today? Or not today. We'll try again tomorrow, though.
We don't never say love.
What
we say like.
You might not like.
I say I don't like you today.
I don't like you. I don't like you.
Try again tomorrow.
I'll say I don't like you today. He like I don't like you today. All right.
Maybe tomorrow. We'll try again.
We'll try again tomorrow.
What we finna eat?
But your love but your love can endure. You know what I'm saying? Like your love can endure. I think that's beautiful. Okay, my last question we got to get to because we're going to run out of time. But we have to talk about this just briefly.
Okay.
So raging on the internet, on Beyonce's internet, is a debate about 50-50.
Oh,
this whole conversation is about men and women be splitting bills 50-50. First of all, I think it's offensive that these conversations are taking space in black places because other groups of people ain't even having these kind of conversations. But I will say at the end of the day, if you're not familiar, the raging debate about should men and women that are married or in relationships be splitting bills and things like that 50-50 in terms of the economic load. So I'll tell you in terms of the context of this podcast, I like to have conversations that are rooted in love and not ego. I feel like the biggest problem is that a lot of these conversations are based on ego. When you hear a man say something like, well, my mama always worked and da-da-da-da, or, stuff costs too much, if you want it, da-da-da-da, and that's the basis of that conversation, is problematic for me. So my thing is, if your reasoning is rooted in love, then maybe that's where you are in your journey. I make this amount. We were just talking about y'all having a conversation about when y'all got married. I make this amount. This is where I am. This is my plan. Da, da, da. So I know now where y'all are for people not listening. Tell them where you are now, but also where you were and your thoughts on this conversation about 50-50, because I just feel like it's another point of division for us as black people. And it's problematic because we should be looking for more ways to take better care of each other and love each other well.
Baby, I'm retired. My husband retired me at 35 years old. I don't.
Now that don't mean you don't do nothing or have no economic standing in your household.
I was an educator for 13 years. I retired from education after my 13th year. I'm now a real estate agent. I own a boutique. I am a makeup artist. I am an author. My husband has helped me to create a space and a platform to where every day when I wake up, other than taking care of him and my kids in our household,
which is a lot in itself too.
I am able to work on my passion projects. I'm able to write my books, and I'm able to restock my boutique, and I'm able to find more investment homes for us and for other people, and to help them sell and buy and all the things that I love to do. That is where we are right now, and eventually I will be retiring him. So that's where we are now, but that is not where we were.
Okay, so let me say this before you go to the next part. What I hear you saying is, and this is what I keep trying to help people understand, they're not talking about this on the other platforms. When you do free up a woman, especially an enterprising woman, and you take her outside of a system, outside of an institutional structure, right? Like, let's say you were in education, somewhere you got to go report 8 to 5, blah, blah, you don't have autonomy of your days, there's a need for that too. When you are removed from that, an enterprising woman is usually not just going to sit down and be like, well, now I can just lay in the bed today and chill. Usually you get freed up for more creative forms of entrepreneurship, which will bring some money.
Absolutely.
But they are usually what we call part-time and irregular income, right? So somebody's income got to pay the bills, make sure the mortgage get paid.
Absolutely.
But then you can build your other endeavors to make more money than the other person if you have the freedom for creativity. Creativity cannot exist for some people where there are the confines of an 8 to 5 also, because you're locked down, and creativity don't work like that. Okay, I just had to sidebar that.
There's no cap on the income. When he was able to free me from that institution, and now I'm able to work on my passion projects and all the things that I love to do, there's no cap. So, yeah.
What you got to say to that, Chris? Didn't start there, but that's where y'all are now.
We didn't start, but I think that is one, I hate social media, but I think that conversation is kind of killing relationships, and maybe it's because all I do is follow black people and black entities on Instagram and all of these things. That's all I see is this debate over, what do you bring to the table? What do you bring? And it's always
the table.
It's always financially rooted. Like the answer is, well, I make this much and I make this much, and the woman's like, well, I could clean and blah blah blah, do this, and it's just a weird.
So weird.
Conversation to go on back and forth when that's all you see. And I think that conversation, social media blows it up because it's messy. I think real conversations are being had, but we don't hear them because, like you said, everybody who should has a podcast probably don't. It's the people who don't need one. They all got one.
Everyone's busy. We're all busy.
Yeah, they're too busy to, do something like that. So you don't hear real conversations that take place between a couple on what they want. And not everything is financially based, but sometimes it is a security aspect of it. A woman wants security, but a man wants security too. So I'm not going to say every nigga is sassy because he wants his woman to work. Yeah. I don't know that nigga position in life.
Right.
So he might need somebody there that could hold it down while he trying to do something. This role could easily be reversed if I was the creative. I'm just not. I don't care what I do for a living. I don't have any passions or drive I gotta be in to be happy at work. I never looked at work like that. Work is work. It's not supposed to be fun. A lot of people out there think it gotta be fun and enjoyable. I have to be able to help people and build and do this. That's great for y'all. I don't give a shit what I do.
But you do help people in your job though, don't you?
Really?
Maybe,
am I helping
but I don't
people?
care, but I might. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. Not really. If I could just coach my kids all the time, I would do that, but that doesn't pay. So I can't do that.
I got you.
But the conversation is real ass backwards. Like if you're not with somebody, like why do you care? You know what I'm saying? Like what would you do if you were by yourself? You can't just walk around broke.
Right.
And then, that's what, because that narrative is out there so much, then that's what make niggas think, every woman is out to get all my money kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's that's the narrative from social media. Most women make more money than us. It's a lot of women, especially black women. A lot of black women make over 6 figures that are above 30.
But here's the problem, Chris, that I think is not being addressed when you're saying that, especially people thinking like she want to come take all my money. I think when you're in your 20s, again, like we having double-sided conversations because we were friends and together in our 20s, and now we running up on 40 soon. And I think in your 20s, so for me, like I said, at the first, I was goal-oriented, I was making money, I was finishing my master's. Like before I even got married, I had 2 houses, I had my own car, like I was already And so for me, I think when you're looking at this equation as a 20-year-old, you're thinking, well, yeah, I'm going to work. Like I'm a worker, I've always worked, I make good money, I'm going to make better money, And it's not until, again, that's theory. It's not until you get into it that you realize, oh, crap. Once I start caretaking and I have a child, first of all, my body does something different.
When
that type A energy shifted to, I need to be here for my kid. And I got to get back. My child was 3 months old. I had to take her to somebody's daycare, drop her off, because there was work I had to get back to because we had a lifestyle that required me to be making money. And I think the 50-50 conversation is missing this piece about when caretaking is introduced to your relationship. Because if it's just 2 of y'all, sure, work, do whatever, make all the money. But when the caretaking comes in, no matter how great a man is, my experience has been with me and the people that I know, a woman's role cannot be 50-50. Can you 50-50 carry this baby in my womb? You can't 50-50 carry it. You can't 50-50 feed it with your 50-50 chest when it come out.
Right.
And so it's like the caretaking will just quite naturally fall more on the woman. And so I feel like what's happening, y'all could tell me this is the last part of our time, is that people have amassed a lifestyle such that your lifestyle is here now. You can't afford to live off one income because I need to drive a Benz. I need to go to Puerto Rico and I need to go to here and there. And all this lifestyle shit is here such that you could not, if you needed to, come down to one income and survive. And so I think that's the biggest thing. Caretaking starts with kids, but then what does it shift to? Our parents. We run up on 40. Now we got to caretake for parents, and the woman is going to be in the primary caretaking role in most situations. Right. And your 50-50 brain can't see that far that you're going to be. So I think lifestyle is becoming such a big issue because now y'all saying we need 50-50 to make the bills, but we're trying to live outside of our means so heavy.
And I think you kind of nailed the point. It is a conversation that's out there that's between 20-year-olds all the way up to 45-year-olds.
Yeah.
And those are completely different, like lifestyles, like you said.
Right.
completely different just frame of minds on how life is supposed to work. At 20, I didn't even understand money. It's a lot of people in their 30s don't understand money.
Oh,
We still working on it. And I think that's probably a bigger problem, but a different conversation that most of us Black people coming out of middle class or lower middle class, we really had no understanding of money. Right. And then as times change and everything grows, we get to 30, 35, we're understanding, well, I don't really just want to go to work until I'm 65 years old. Like,
and so certain things
all
I don't care
the time,
about no
all
more.
day.
Yeah. Like you said, I do my own nails, do my own toes. It's certain things. I'm like, hold on.
So like we did have a certain established lifestyle initially when we were married. We both had 2 incomes. We just, in our minds, we assumed we gonna be working till retirement age. And then, we hit a point where, we want more. Like now we have these kids. Like, man, I don't want to be at work all day.
I want to be able to go to their
I want to be able to go to the game. I gotta ask this nigga if I could go to my kid's graduation in the middle of the day. I gotta ask somebody to go to my kid's graduation. Like, why do I have to do that? And the more knowledge you gain, and that's one good thing about social media. You get to see different things of where you see people like, what you mean you work from home? What? You work from home? I didn't know I could work from home.
Right.
I got a blessing and a curse. COVID came, I ain't had to go to work.
Right.
I feel sorry for what happened to everybody, but I ain't had to clock into the office but twice a week.
Man. Yeah.
And I didn't know that was possible for me. So now if I'm looking for another job, like, what you mean I got to come in 5 days a week? Nope. Now I'm too bougie.
That's
Too
a whole
bougie to
nother
do that.
podcast episode now, because now these employees having an issue. They're like,
Listen.
come back.
People and people who were financially safe was like, hey, you got to come back in the office. This niggas at my job said, no, I'm not coming. I quit.
No.
I ain't never thought about quitting out of nothing.
Yeah,
Quitting
my friends
work?
know I'm the one.
You want me to quit working?
You said...
So just the fact that that's out there now changes your whole mindset on finances, on life, on your marriage, on your family. Like, what do you mean I could be there for everything that my family is doing? I don't have to miss just because it's in the middle of the day.
Right.
Like that makes it, that's actually life. It's not just working and then starting life at 65. Now I'm Black. I may not make it till 65 as a Black man. I need to do some stuff to where I could kick it right now.
Yeah.
So I think what's important for us and what's I think is important for any marriage to last is that you have to have that conversation of once you hit a point where you have to rediscuss some stuff. Where do we want to be in life? Where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to be in 10?
Because you didn't know when you was 20.
Right, and it changes.
Down to the finite details. What kind of house do we want to end up in? Where do we want to live in the same city forever, or do we want to do something different?
Now she be up cooking breakfast and stuff and lunch,
dinner,
and now he act like y'all ought to see this man handicapped. Where my lunch? What we eating? Now he can't.
It does have its benefits. It has its benefits, but.
I'm so hungry, baby.
That conversation was a long and hard one because we had to get on the same page about what we want in life. And then we have to be realistic about what that means. You might have to find a real couple that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
Maybe not how their marriage works, and it's not all about finances, but we have to be real. The only people that say money don't matter is niggas who got a whole bunch of it.
Yeah,
for the rest of us, it provides, it may not provide happiness, but it provides access to the freedom to figure out what makes us happy.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, we stuck going to work every day or you paycheck to paycheck. Until you get true freedom, you don't have time to figure out what makes you happy. You're trying to take care of XYZ to make sure you can make it to the next month.
That's why in my big age, I'm like, I don't have to have Louis this or a G-Wagon that, but I'm going to get on a flight. If it's one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to fly.
You have that real conversation.
But at the end of the day, I want to thank y'all for coming on. Was there any last thing you wanted to say about that? Because before we wrap. Because Chris went long, and I ain't.
Bad.
It was good though.
Yeah, it was good.
Because y'all keep trying to like down men, like y'all gotta take care.
No, we not trying to down men. I just wanted to be clear.
It's all this soft life.
No, what we need is women in positions to be able to show up in community, especially in Black spaces. We got to go to the schools. We got to advocate for our kids. We got to be able to. I show up in my child's school, and they already know because I'm here as an advocate for my kid, but also as an extension of them other kids too. And we got to be able to be freed up to be in those positions happening in those rooms. And if we all strapped to go to work and we all can't breathe for a second, and our kids are left to systems and institutions to be raised, and we have to be able to show up in them spaces.
So it's just about being transparent about what it is that you want. How long do you actually want to work? Talking to your spouse about that and putting a plan in place for what it is that you actually want, but you got to know what you want first.
Yeah.
For a second, it doesn't even sound like we really talking about what it takes to be married or stay married, but the reality is this is a big part of it. And it's not just the fact that we've had a long discussion about what we both want out of life, what we want out of life to get on the same page, but we also are at a place where we've made it so the journey is fun.
Yeah.
So if we're shooting for the moon, we're going to enjoy the ride if we miss and reach the stars kind of thing.
Well, I appreciate y'all. And thank y'all so much for coming today. And if people want to find y'all and follow y'all and learn more about the Johnsons, where can they find y'all?
You can find me on
Tish's page.
Instagram at t.shontae, T.shontae on Instagram. He's not on social
Ain't no
media.
point
He said
following
just
me.
follow her.
Yeah.
Just
I
follow her if
post
you
like
want to.
once a year.
TSHONTAE, T.shontae on Instagram.
Thank y'all so much. And thank you for joining us for this episode. I hope you got something that's going to help you in your journey for discovering self-love for yourself and loving yourself well. Until next time, namaste, y'all.
Say all them other pages and stuff you got.
It's a lot.
They're going to be linked.
Yeah, they're
They're
going to
going to
be
be
linked.
linked.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
we're done.
I'm trying
Invite
to-
us back. It's still so much to talk about.
We do need to
Ain't
talk
nobody-
about entrepreneurship as
Ain't
a
nobody
path to
finna really take over this. They
That's
not
what you
finna
think.
read it. They not finna read it.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Namaste, y'all. If you haven't already, be sure that you follow us wherever you get your social media fixes. And also make sure you check out our upcoming community events because we want to connect with you, not just in the virtual space, but in person. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Namaste, y'all.